Sahana Vavatu
Sahana bhavatu.
Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we're on verse 24, and I want to go back to verse 23 and talk about actually before we started, before verse 23. Let's start just from the beginning at chapter 2, verse 11. Now, how did this entire inquiry into the nature of self, into your body, into your mind, how did it all start? It started at chapter 2, verse 11, where Krishna said, Panditaha na anushochanti. He says that the pundits, in this case, the pundits are the wise ones, do not or have a different relationship to grieving. If we say do not grieve, it doesn't mean the person never sheds a tear in their entire life. It means that the person has a different relationship to how they see loss. So now, for Arjuna to understand this, for us to understand, to have an objective relationship in life, we have to see what Krishna is saying. So I want to first ensure that this is not about Arjuna. You need to bring this down to yourself. Krishna is, we are Arjunas. We are all in different situations. Arjuna may be doing his, duty, his part on the battlefield. We're all in this, right, world of action, in this Kurukshetra of action. And we all have unique talents, unique skills, unique unique positions in life. You put in a unique position in life and you got to do your part. Now, every one of us, while we are doing our part, we are faced with different kinds of challenges. And so what Krishna wants to show us is how to, amidst doing our challenges, how to look at our life, how to look at ourselves and the relationship in which we find ourselves so that we, have a little bit of easier time getting through this world. But not only is it just about an easier time, but also you have to understand who is this, right? What's the nature of this individual? What's my real nature? And Krishna wants to bring this inquiry by starting in verse 23. In fact, after a lot of inquiry we've done, he continues on to verse 23, and he starts by saying, this body that you carry right now, this body with which you're listening, these ears, these eyes, the nose, your organs, everything, it's made of 5 elements. Now, the 5 elements is a Vedic model, and it's a model to show you how things came. And it's not a model to sort of ask, so let's look at these 5 elements and how did it all come and when did it come and why did it come? So there's a tendency in Vedanta when the listener gets caught up with the details. But I have to bring it back, and the teacher has to bring it back and say, why are we going through this inquiry? To know who gets enlightened, what is enlightenment, or how did the universe come? This is all going to be shown, of course, but the teacher always has to remind you, ultimately, the only purpose of why we're doing this is to have clarity of who you are. What is my relationship to this universe? What is like all of this? Putting things in the right place. So when I say what is all of this, it means everything. Whatever you are, wherever you are, you just put things in the right place. Now, in this case, how does Krishna do that? He puts our body in the right place. He says, your body consists of these 5 elements. And what are they? They're akasha in Sanskrit, right? Space. There are vayu, air. There are agni, they're fire. They're apaha or jala, water. And they're prithvi, which is earth. Now, if you look at your organs, as we said last week, every organ is positioned in the right place. So your eyes are positioned in the right place, right? Your brain's positioned in the right place, the heart relative to the spleen, the liver, the gallbladder, right? The large intestine, small intestine, everything is put in the right place. If one thing goes out of place, there's excruciating pain. So in relative to the space, every organ has a purposeful place. If you look at your blood is, oxygenated constantly. So this means that the body basically is now breathing, digesting, thinking, all because of its blood being oxygenated. So in that sense, it also has air. It has heat. It has it has, when you run, when you get hot, you get a little bit warm, or you're able to sweat during a hot day. So all of this is part of our physiology, which shows us there's a certain factor in our body that is able to generate heat. I remember there was a show called um, I Shouldn't Be Alive. And it's a show of survivors who have undergone through tremendous, I think it's called that, tremendous, um, feats of being challenged in the environmental, like being, lost in the woods or lost on the ocean for 70 days, one man. Now, one of them was lost in the mountains. They were doing a hike in a snowy regions, and it was a her, and she underestimated the weather, so it caught her. So she had to stay up in the distant altitude, high altitude, and she couldn't come down because of the levels of the snow. And all she was doing, she was trying to generate heat for her body because she didn't have fire. She didn't have any kind of, even clothes are not going to help you in minus 20 degrees. So she constantly had to move and generate this heat. And to do that, she had to eat, but then she didn't have enough food to survive. So somehow she made it, and she later on, she lost an arm because it turned into, it literally froze. So they had to sever the arm. So, right, we take things for granted, and we can see that your body is constantly helping you generate this heat. So this is the principle of fire. And then there is the apaha, water. Most of your body now is water. And they say also, by the way, if you're low on energy, instead of taking coffee, just give your body a lot of water, and you may be surprised how well you're able to sustain those energy levels. So the body needs a decent amount of water. How much, I don't know. I'm not going to say 8 liters. I don't know who drinks 8 liters of water per day, but enough water for you to, you may notice a difference. And there is earth. You put this body in ashes, right? And it's just ash, right, in fire. So it's earth. So now if you look at, as I said, your heat, right? If you're hot, does that make more you? Are you more you when you're hotter? No, I'm the same you. Are you less you when you're freezing? I mean, it appears like you're less you, but you still, you're still you. If you have if you're dehydrated, right, are you somehow less you? No, you're exactly the same person. So now again, the purpose of this prakriya means method, is just to show you that there is a certain, right, makeup about your body, that it's made of these 5 elements, and yet they go through constant changes, and none of them affect I am. So this means if none of these elements are I, then the question I posed last week was, how many these not I's do I have to keep on adding? Not I space, not I air, as in blood, right? Not I earth, right? All of the bones and everything. Not I heat, not I water, not I plus not I plus not I plus not I. When will you come to I am? Right? So you're never going to come to I am. Now, the body is similar. The subtle body is very similar. The only difference is that your physical body has a gross elements, 5 elements, and the subtle body is subtle 5 elements. And the next verse 25 is going to ask the question, how do we understand the connection between the 5 elements and the subtle body? Well, the answer is your subtle body, just like the physical body, is made or composed of these 5 elements. Now, these 5 elements, if you can think about it as, for example, a camera, right? A camera is made of, like a video camera, is made of stuff of the world. Now, this camera, being made of stuff of the world, is able to capture data of the world. So it's made of the same stuff as the world, and it's also able to capture data of the world. Your subtle body is very similar. It's made of the 5 elements, and these 5 elements is able to interact with the 5 elemental world and therefore capture the data. And all these 5 elements, they are these five, for example, your 5 sense organs. What's the connection between 5 sense organs and the 5 elements? Well, each sense organ is when I say sense organ, I mean not your physical eyes or your physical ears. I mean the capacity to see, capacity to hear, capacity to smell. So, for example, I can see your nose, but I can't smell what you're smelling. No doctor, no machine in this world will be able to tell what you're smelling. Only you can. Now, when I say that word you, what I specifically mean is the subtle body can. So the only thing that the doctor can see is under MRI or X-ray or CAT scan, right, is they will see a certain electrical impulses which are consistent with what the subtle body is doing. It's smelling the rose. So in this sense, there is a connection between the five elements and the five organs of perception. And one of these, for example, fire, right, has out of its portion, I'll talk about the sattva portion, all of these portions, guna and tamas, but out of fire comes the capacity to see. Out of water comes capacity to taste. Out of earth element comes the capacity to taste. Out of space comes the capacity to hear, and out of air element comes the capacity to feel. So there's a correlation. For example, if you go out and there's air blowing and you're able to feel that. But I'll talk about these five elements much later. I just want to give us a general overview now, and then we'll go into the detail later on. So now both the physical body and the subtle body are made of these five elements. Now, then it says in verse 25, what is it that grieves? Because Arjuna is still grieving, right? Who are you grieving for? This is what Krishna is asking for. When you see a person in the hospital, whether it is your dear one, whether it is your own body, whether it is someone that's very close to you, or you're a nurse, who is it? Who are you grieving for? And if you're grieving for the physical body, then you're grieving for the five elements. And so which are you grieving for? The space? Are you grieving for the air, for the water, for the earth, or for the fire in that person? What specifically are you grieving for? And if you're grieving for the personality of the person, which is their subtle body, their makeup, then again, what are you grieving for? Which thought are you grieving for specifically? Right? And that subtle body, that thought, is nothing but five elements. It's just kind of amazing matter that's able to move and shape and shift itself, like in a dream. In your dream, that's called subtle matter. Do you remember your dreams? If you do remember your dreams, then there is an advantage. Then you can see how those five subtle elements operate. They're very flexible. They're able to transform. They're able to imagine. They're able to create amazing images. They're able to manifest as a desire. The five elements are able to manifest as an idea. As if I ask you, what is the color of your car? What is the color of your fridge? I hope you all have fridges, right? Yeah, we all have fridges nowadays.
You mean in the dream or in the real?
So it's the same thing. So here, right, if you imagine or remember a fridge, or you have a desire here, that idea is the same material as in the dream. Because in the dream, what's very active is your mind. So what's very active is entirely these five elements, which constitutes your subtle body. So what I want to show you here is that the nature of this subtle elements, how they're able to be much more flexible and malleable and bendable, and they're able to go from one to the other. But can you do that with physical matter? No, physical matter is a lot more solid. So therefore, subtle matter has the ability to mold itself and so on. Physical matter is very solid and stable. But either way, whether it's a dream or whether it's a desire or a memory right now, what are we speaking of? So if you have a thought right now, or a concern or a worry, or you say something like, what will I do tomorrow? What will I do tomorrow? Oh, I'm concerned about the world for tomorrow. What is that? That is the five subtle elements manifesting as that thought. And if you say, for example, I want to ask a question, that question is an idea. It's 5 subtle elements. So what Krishna is pointing out is that that's all we're dealing with here. Just a bunch of elements, 5 elements from day we're born to the day we die. It's all just permutations and combinations of these 5 elements that you're dealing with in the dream, in the waking, when you share ideas, when we laugh to each other's jokes. What are you laughing to? Are you laughing to space, air, fire, water, earth? Now you're laughing to the permutations and combinations of this. That's what we call an idea. I have an amazing idea. I'm going to change the world. 5 elements. Okay? Therefore, now, what is it that grieves? 5 elements. What is it that worries? 5 elements. What is it that is concerned? 5 elements. Now, Krishna then continues in verse 25 and says, therefore, because these 5 elements are what grieves, what worries, what is concerned, what about Atma? Atma, for this, because Atma is a satya, that means it is unaffected by the subtle elements, it is achintya. This is verse 25. What is achintya? Atma, awareness, is unthinkable. So unlike the 5 elements, which are able to be thought of as an idea, as a desire, as an object, as a concern, as a worry, what about Atma? It is achintya, it is unthinkable. So look at this. Think of a flower right now, please. Think of a flower, a pretty flower, maybe outside your garden, or maybe you saw it on the streets, and really see the colorful, what color is it? Is it white? Is it pink, red, violet? Okay, now we can stop thinking about this lovely flower. Okay, now I want you to, right, were you successful in thinking about a flower? Okay, now what was that flower made of in your mind? 5 elements, obtaining as a flower. Okay, now I want you to think of awareness. Think of awareness. Can you do it? Can you think of awareness? Because if you thought of awareness, then was that awareness?
No.
No, what was that? If you thought of awareness,
5 elements.
that was the 5 elements. So this means, and so in other words, you cannot ever think of awareness because awareness is always the subject, and everything in the presence of the subject is an object. Just like the eye, for example, the physical eye I'm talking about now. Can the physical eye ever objectify itself? Can it ever see itself? No. However, in the presence of the physical eye, everything else is seen. Everything else is objectified. So this means the physical eye doesn't have to see itself. Why? Because just by the mere fact that everything else is seen shows you that there is a I there. So in this sense, it is unthinkable. It is not graspable as any particular object. So again, please think about this carefully. If you're trying to make awareness, this reality, as something like in a meditation, okay, some kind of a subtle sensation, then what are you doing? You're converting it into 5 elements.
5 elements.
5 elements, just like any other thought, just more subtle. I get it. It's more subtle, more pleasing, more joyful, more sublime, more divine, whatever keywords you want to head onto it. It is just 5 elements. There is nothing you could ever do to imagine awareness. Awareness is you. In the presence of you, this flower has taken place. Whoever was there in the presence of whom, that was you. That was in the presence of you, the flower took place.
Without the awareness, you cannot even think of the flower.
And awareness doesn't have a mind, so it cannot now. It doesn't have a mouth, so it doesn't speak. It doesn't imagine. It doesn't worry. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't get concerned. It doesn't. It's not. It's not. It's not intelligent. Nor is it. Nor is it cuckoo. It's nothing. It's just the presence in whom the mind takes place. In presence in whom this mind, which is 5 elements, constantly undergoes permutations and combinations. How many? How many changes? Well, some time ago I said about 60,000 changes of your mind. 5 elements are constantly reorganizing themselves, constantly like this. And this, I want one of those organizations, one of those 60,000 organizations, I want them to be awareness. It's just one of the many. Okay? So it doesn't matter which one, they take place in awareness. This is what is being shown. And then what else is Atma or awareness? It is avikara. It doesn't undergo change. Now, what undergoes change? Well, the body, we said, undergoes through 6 changes. Now, is awareness born? Because the body is asti born, jayate born. That is awareness born. Okay, if awareness was born, if you want awareness to be born, because awareness is the final reality, by the way. Awareness is what everyone's looking for. Awareness is the final thing. Awareness is the end of your spiritual search. When you recognize this reality, there's nothing afterwards. That's it. That you have finished the final journey. So if awareness is the final reality, the only reality called Brahman, then how can it be born if it's everything? It's already everything. It was always everything, right? Everything was always the reality. So how can you now want reality to be born for you? For one little mind made of 5 elements, I want that mind, inside that mind, awareness to be born. And yet the whole thing is awareness. Does awareness go through, if we have asti, that means it's in the fetus, jayate, it's born, vartate, it grows. Does your awareness ever grow? You know what they say in the spiritual world? I have, my consciousness is expanding. We all heard this. I want expanded consciousness. How do they say it, right? I want to expand my levels of consciousness. What are you talking about when you say this? I want to expand my levels of consciousness. What is being, yes, Gautam?
Better understanding.
Yeah, good understanding. And Gautam, you want to say?
Maybe somebody is trying to get out of the his 5 elements, being, and embrace aham brahmasmi type of awareness, where he feels that everything is Brahm only, and thereby even something which is already all pervading, he wants to say in these words that I want my awareness to be expanding.
Yeah, exactly. So good, Gautam. So in other words, I want now to embrace this reality. For the first time, I want to embrace I am Atma. For the first time ever. Yesterday, I was not embracing it. And now I've come to the teacher and the teaching, which is the heart of all non-duality, being the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, which is what we're teaching. And in this class now, we're said that we're pointing to this reality. And now the listener, suppose, I'm not saying who's doing this, doesn't matter, right? Wants for the first time to embrace this reality. I want it to be born from me. And yet it's been me all along. It's been the one that has been awareing all of my frustrations to know this reality. The one that's been there lighting up this mind that's desperately trying to grasp the final reality. What has been there? What has been shining on this person has been so, right, adamant of coming to the end of their spiritual search? Who was there? Who was there all the time, right? Just in the presence of whom there was this person trying to figure it out. It was me. Now, the irony is you need the mind. You need to clean up the mind to come to this clarity, come to this understanding. Until then, the mind is going to keep on turning awareness into an object. It wants to, again, it keeps on going back. It wants to turn it into some some graspable idea, some very beautiful, sublime sensation. No matter how many times the teacher or the teachers say it, the mind goes right back to what it's always been doing. And what has the mind always been doing?
Rectifying.
Turning everything into an object. No matter what you give it, you say God, object up there. Somehow it imagines up there. Awareness, it's some, again, it wants it to be something. Therefore, none of this is going to take place, forget about it. So it is avikara. It doesn't undergo change. Now, if it doesn't, look at this, if it doesn't undergo change, then can you ever know awareness anything to be different than what it is right now, if it doesn't undergo change? Because if it does undergo change, that means right now it's not so expanded, and tomorrow it's going to be much more expanded. That's not going to happen because it doesn't undergo change. So whatever is here and now, the presence in whom this conversation is taking place now will be the exact same presence in whom tomorrow's conversation will be taking place. Now, I don't know what's the nature of tomorrow's conversation. That depends on who you're going to be with. But there will be a presence tomorrow. That presence is the exact same presence in whose presence this conversation is now taking place. The only difference is what is being talked about in this presence, the nature of this presence. But when you go and talk to a friend or someone at work, what in the presence of in your presence, what is going to be the nature of the conversation? Anything other than the presence. You understand the difference between, right, what the place that the teaching this Gita has in respect to the world? So there's a one presence in this presence now, which is awareness. What is the nature of the conversation? It is about the presence. Tomorrow, same presence. What's the nature of the conversation? It is about, I don't know what. It's going to be anything other than the presence. But the presence is there. So this means it is unchanging. Now, does awareness go through? So we've got Jayate, Vartate grows. We got Vartate grows, Viparinamate. Does awareness become more mature, right? More mature. So this means now you're whatever, 40, 50, 30. Is there any 30-year-olds in this class? Put your hand up. I need to survey the class status. Pankaj has his hand up. So Pankaj is about. No, because I noticed that a lot of us, right, in this class, we're usually, right, in our, it's hard to find 30-year-olds. It's, 40s onwards, even 50s. It would be nice to have youngsters, but I don't find youngsters sticking around for too long. So if you have any youngsters, bring them over. We need some youngsters. But it's very nice to see. Umakant, are you 30? Are you?
Yeah, I'm actually 28.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Wait. Hands.
Yeah.
That's
Hello, I'm actually
Old soul.
23.
Apexa is also yes.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
old souls.
23.
Oh my God.
Oof.
23.
Andre,
Yes.
they should be old souls. That's why they're here.
Yeah, I mean, also, in fact, you now reminded me, let's talk about reincarnation. Now talk about why is it that some of us are younger and we are, right,
Interested.
right, innocently attracted to these kinds of things. I'll bring this up very soon. Now, does awareness, apakshiyate, does awareness decay, right? So this means, yeah, your body decays and our thoughts decays too. When you were like Apexa, you were young, we were thinking very fast. We were able to do all amazing things. And, 34, 30 is still great, but 40 onwards, slowly, we start to develop, slow down. And they say that by the time you're 42, you start to get glasses. right? This is a kind of a common thing. So look at this. So there's a decay of eyesight, there's a decay of your mind and your thinking, and maybe you're not able to rap so fast, you're not able to be so funny and so charming anymore. So these are all combinations and permutations of the 5 elements. They're starting to go through their thing, right? Because they're programmed to change. You can't stop it. They're programmed to do that. But does your awareness ever decay?
No.
Otherwise, if your awareness decay, then how would you ever tell that you're decaying? Because you will be decaying right along with your body. You'll say, no, I am the best of the best right now. Only a crazy person would say that. So this means a person in dementia, they're falling apart, their teeth are all over the place, their hair is falling up, and they can't remember anything. And I say, no, I am top notch. No. In the presence of awareness, there's a recognition that the mind is undergoing decay. Thereby, now does awareness go through vinashati, death?
No.
Even in deep sleep, right? You say, right, I slept. That means, and I said some time ago, if your awareness were to disappear in deep sleep, since it is you who would go to deep sleep, because you would go out of existence. You would be afraid to go out of existence, but you gladly go to sleep. Why? Because I want to get rid of this person. I want to get rid of the person's life. For the first time ever, the person's life is not going to be there in deep sleep. I am for once relieved of this person. It really changes your relationship, what it means to, is your purpose here to know everything? If your purpose was to know everything, you wouldn't want to go to sleep, because in deep sleep, you don't know anything. In other words, right, we come and we kind of mix things up. We say, no, my final purpose is to be a scholar, which is wonderful. I highly respect scholars. It's to know things. I will say this. The only much that you need to know, the only little bit of information that you need to know is your nature of who you are, your nature to Ishvara. That is it. The nature of the world, my connection to myself, to Ishvara and the world. That much I came here to do. So this means even knowledge, the person can get caught up and start to study and learn and get so engrossed in their work. And then you basically lost the plot, right? Which is wonderful, but, to learn all of these things, but still you haven't really, attained, you haven't asked the second question. What was the second question for Arjuna? Even if I've gained the highest prestige in an army, I am respected, I am a musician, I'm a dancer, I am, I'm one of the 5 brothers, I am multi-talented. Whose son? Indra, right? So he's the son of Indra, right? Now, who is Indra? Indra is the king of Devas. Now, to be a king of Devas, because Indra is the father, right? I think we can say that the father of Arjuna. Now, to be the king of Devas, you have to have so many talents. That's what makes you the king. You have to be multi-versatile. You have to be versatile in so many facets of life. Arjuna is versatile. Now, even if Arjuna is so versatile and he has multi-talents, he still asks the second question. I've recognized that all of this is still not giving me what I want. What is this all there is to it? Am I this much, this little limited person? What is the final truth to this, Krishna? Tell me. Therefore, so this means awareness doesn't go through any of these changes that the body goes through, let alone that the mind goes through. Because if awareness was going and changing with the mind, then you would not have a sense of changing mind. You would say, this new thought is all there is to it. You will never recognize that you've had all of these other thoughts, because you need an unchanging platform to recognize the changes. Just like in a train, right? You see a train moving. Why? Suppose 2 trains are moving together. Could you tell that the train is moving? Suppose you can't see the ground and 2 trains are moving. Could you tell? No, you couldn't tell. You need a contrasting foundation. You need that substratum, which is non-moving, to recognize that my body's moving, that my thoughts are moving, that there is a combination and permutation of these 5 elements that are changing. So this means there is a unchanging presence, as we said, avikara, that doesn't in any way modify. Now, last week, we talked about knower, we talked about ahamkara. And I want to clarify this one more time, because what happens is in Vedanta, a person can fall for taking their ahamkara as this awareness. So I want to make this a little bit more clear to show us what is the nature of your experience. Okay, so right now, 2 thoughts. Suppose I show you this spot. Okay, so this is a little inquiry. I show you this spot. Okay, so we'll call this pot vritti. Vritti is a thought. Okay. Now I show you the spot, and then I show you this cup. Okay. So what has happened here? The pot has undergone a transformation from pot vritti into cup vritti. Cup vritti. Okay. So this means, right, the objects are undergoing changes. But what is the relationship between the thought and awareness? While thought comes and goes, awareness survives. So this means that thought, right, because this is a thought in your mind right now. Thought comes, thought goes, another thought comes, it goes, but there's one surviving principle, which is awareness. Now, you can ask another question. You say, well, then, what about the knower, right? So we'll say now the knower. And we'll call the knower, like the knower of the pot. That's what I mean. So someone knows about the pot, right? And there's a being now that knows about this cup. Now, the problem is you may mistake that knower who knows about this to be awareness. So I want to clarify this. So knower we'll call pramata. Pramata. Okay, are you getting this? So this is easy, right? Thought of this comes, thought of this goes. Right? There's one surviving principle, which is awareness. But the problem is you may now mistake the knower of this and the knower of that to be the awareness. Okay, so I want to clarify this. The knower. So knower is also a thought. Okay, so we'll call this a thought. So vritti, right? Vritti. So the pot is a vritti, and the knower, who knows about this? The knower, right? Whoever you want to call the knower, just the knower. That knower is also a thought. Thought. Now, what is the relationship between this knower and awareness? Are you getting the question? Because this is the final reality, awareness, Atma. Okay? So the relationship is that suppose right now you are listening to an audio program, or you're thinking, right? You're getting to know things. You're knowing about the amazing world of animals, the animal world. You're a knower in that moment. What happens the next moment when you're, for example, walking or mowing the grass? Are you still a knower? Are you not thinking anything? Are you still a knower?
Hello.
No, you're not a knower. You are a doer. So the knower has changed into a doer, right? The walker, the singer, right? You're doing the singing, right? The painter, the calculator, right? You're not really knowing anything. You're just doing things mechanically. The one who calculates, okay? So what has changed? From one moment, oh, such an amazing world. Wow, tell me more. Oh, hold on one second. Let me just go and do my little kettle. I just need to turn on the kettle for some hot water. Let me do the kettle. So from one moment, I'm a knower. Next moment, I'm a doer. And now, what is the connection between the knower and awareness? Well, the knower is able to change into a doer, and then the doer goes back into a knower like this constantly. Are you a knower all your life? No, not at all. We're doing most of you, it's kind of like, half of the day I'm doing things, I'm walking, I'm just organizing some files on the computer. I'm not knowing about anything, just leave me alone. I don't want to know anything. But the next moment, somebody says, hey, I've got come and watch this documentary on spiders, right? Now let me become a knower. So this means throughout this, there is one invariable presence called awareness. Whereas what is variable? The knower, doer, knower. Okay? Now, what is the relationship between, okay, before I do that, now both the knower and the doer, I'll take a different color, we can say in one word is the ahamkara. So we used one more word yesterday, ahamkara. Yesterday or last week? Last week, right? Ahamkara, or the I sense. So what happens? You say, I know boredom. Oops, boredom. I now know, intelligence. I am intelligent. I am, hot. I am hot. I am cold. Okay. So, right. I am bored. I am intelligent. I am hot. I am cold. Or I am doing, walking. I'm doing writing. I'm doing inquiring. I'm doing, typing on a computer. So this means now, what does this mean? Both the doing and the knowing, right, is called the ahamkara. And what is awareness? Do not call awareness, by the way, knower or witness. This is the most common thing. We say awareness or atma is, right, the knower or the witness, the sakshi. Sakshi is this. This is another way. Sakshi is the knower. Awareness is the presence in whose presence the activities of all of this takes place. Does that make sense? It's the presence in whose presence the activity of the knower takes place, the activity of the doer takes place, the activity of the one that's cold, the one that's, hot, the one that's intelligent, in the presence of whom is it all taking place in one awareness, which is of the nature of existence, which is the nature of awareness. Now, sometimes we will say the word awareness is a knower, but then the teacher has to follow this up and clarify what they meant by that. Otherwise, the nature of you is, as we said before, is sat and chit, the nature of existence, the nature of awareness. Anything else, what do? You fall prey to turning awareness into a knower. The content of the knower is the awareness. The content of the doer is awareness. What do I mean by content of the knower? Content of the doer is the awareness. That means when the person's doing, when this instrument, the three bodies are doing, is there awareness of that doing? Yes. When this instrument is knowing about things, like I need to catch the airport, I need to go to the airport, I need to, go and see my friends. Is there awareness of that whole process of knowing? Yes. So there's one invariable presence in whom the activities take place. Therefore, the question was, what is the relationship between the knower and awareness, the doer and awareness, and ahamkara and awareness, and thought and awareness? What's the relationship? Once again, the knower changes to a doer, the doer changes into a knower, and where is your doer and knower in deep sleep? Gone. No doer in deep sleep, no knower in deep sleep. Okay. And what's the relationship between a thought and awareness? A thought is able to, come and go, but there is one surviving principle. Now, there's actually two surviving principles, isn't there? The knower survives. So look at this. I show you a thought. The thought is gone. So what has survived? Well, the knower has survived and awareness has survived. But now you have to understand, what is the content of the knower? What is the truth of the knower? The truth of the knower is always awareness. One presence in whom the knower can also become a doer, and a doer can go back into a knower. Okay. Ashish went first, and now answer Gautam. Ashish, you want to say?
Yeah. So, Andre, so knower and doer, as you said, is essentially another vritti thought, and together we call it ego. So can we say that like ego, which is a vritti, is always either of something which we have already done? It may be like just now, but it's already done, or future in just exact moment it's not there. That ego, either I sense either it's about future, I will do it, or I know, or I knew, but at that very moment there is no ego. You get it what I'm trying to say? Like
Not really, but okay. The ego, the I sense, will always be there because it's a transactional tool. You have to communicate with me. I have to communicate with you. I have to say I, right? I am talking to you. And you have to say I am talking to you, Andre, right? So the I is not going to go anywhere. The I sense is not going to go anywhere. It's an empirical reality, like the sun. The sun's not going to go anywhere. So I don't try to get rid of it. I just see it for what it has, for what its place is. Now, whether it's speaking, it's also accessing the memory. So it has to use the past, and it has to also adapt its responses to the present. So I cannot respond to you in the same way. My ahamkara can't respond to you in the same way that I'm going to respond to Gautam, because we have a different connection, you and I. So therefore, there's always a flexibility with the ahamkara. It borrows knowledge from the past, from its memory, but also it has to be flexible and look at its responses, in the present. How do I approach this present moment?
but we can also say that the knower or the doer, it is also 5 subtle elements which you're talking about, right?
Yeah, this is true. This is truth. Yeah. So it is made of the 5 elements for the sake of transacting in this world.
Transacting. And I have one last question. So when initially I think you were talking about that meditation and samadhi, right? That is not where it's also a certain state of mind, because consciousness or atma cannot be objectified or experienced. And I was trying to relate it with one of your other teachings where you mentioned that when the happiness or the ananda, when you have a desire and it resolves for a moment, you have a spurt of fullness.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. what I'm thinking is when we say that fullness or that spurt of fullness, temporary fullness, when your desire is resolved, that is not, I mean, we cannot say we are experiencing it, because we cannot experience fullness, as you said, I mean, pure consciousness. So I'm just trying to put it in words, like what it actually means.
You're still experiencing your fullness, because you still have a body. So this joy that we feel when we are together with an object, that joy is still an experience known to in the presence of awareness. Now, what Ashish is talking about is called Akhanda Anandam. So they will say in the scriptures that Brahman, I'll just define this word quickly.
And Andre, I just want to add, so is it the reason that we say it reveals? So all of this is thoughts, right? So different thoughts, as you said, 60,000 per in a day. Yeah. So when there are no thoughts, like cessation of thoughts, then what's remaining is Atma.
Yeah. So
you cannot experience it You cannot experience it, but it reveals in
It
some
reveals,
sense, right?
So I'll take that thread. That's a better thread because you gave me two threads now. One was Akanda
Yeah.
Ananda. This one is, so if Atma was a thought, so then where would you be when there's no thought? Right? You would go out of existence. So
Yeah.
Atma is the presence in meditation that reveals the thought, like that thought, and then an absence of thought, and then another thought, and then an absence of thought. Okay, so what, right? So if you were Atma, if this was Atma right here, the moment that goes away, right, then what will be experiencing this? Right? Who will be revealing that? Right? That means Atma has to be the revealer of all experiences, including thoughts and absence of thoughts, silence. This is why in Vedanta, we don't say that meditation is about silence, even though it has its place, but rather it is meditation in Vedanta specifically means saguna Brahma, Vishaya, Manasa, Vyaparaha. So in other words, Saguna Brahma is relating with Ishvara. Okay. So what are you doing with your mind? What's the subject matter, Vishaya, that you are entertaining with your mind? You are relating with Ishvara. How does Ishvara play a role in my life? How is it that when I act, right, where are all these results going? What brings me all of these results? What's my relationship to this world, to my parents, to myself? So the whole process of meditation is relating and bringing Ishvara into your life. Why? To help your mind, to clarify, to purify your mind. And therefore, when you are ready, then you can go into contemplation called nididhyasanam. So this is the example, this is a definition of meditation in Vedanta, specifically using meditation not only to look at those things in your life which are, for example, you are carrying bitterness, and then you simply ask yourself, so, where did this come from? How did this happen? And could I start to look at this in a different way? So you are clearing up, you're bringing all of those unresolved issues in your life in meditation. Notice how it's so different than how we usually know meditation, because we know meditation how? Silence. But what is meditation? Work. Meditation in Vedanta is work. That means, number one, I bring all of those things that I'm holding on to, that are bothering me, that keep on coming back like a tape recorder. I bring them in meditation, and then I try to reframe that, which I will talk about in later verses here. And second of all, I bring Ishvara, which we have not spoken about, which is why I cannot give you the full definition of this. You're bringing Ishvara into your life. Yeah. But either way, what's revealing that whole process? I am Atma. Okay, Gautam?
Yeah, Andre, this is a very technicality type of a question. Still, it's very at the center of the Vedantic teaching, and it has always intrigued me. Like what you said, I, the jiva, is the knower in the light of the consciousness. I am the knower. The jiva is the knower in the light of the consciousness with the help of the mind. Where the mind is not there, the knower resolves. There's no knower like in the deep sleep because there's no mind. However, most of the times in Vedantic teaching, we say that, we witnessed the absence of the mind. That's why we know that we were in the deep sleep.
Yeah.
How do you witness the absence of the mind without a mind? That always intrigues me. How do you witness the how do you become the knower even of that thought without the mind?
Yeah, because what you've been told is true, but there's slight addition that it's called abhava vritti. Abhava vritti. So when you go to deep sleep, this is still there. What is this? It's a memory. Your memory is still active in your deep sleep. That's why this memory, when you wake up, is still available in your waking, And what did this abhava vritti, a type of memory, what did it record in deep sleep? Absolutely nothing. And therefore, when you wake up, you go, so there is, before going to sleep, there is, activity, activity, activity. And now there is no activity. That's called deep sleep. And now there's activity. So now in the waking state, what do? You have access to this entire abhava vritti, and you go, look, I surely remember before I went to bed, I was, on my phone or doing something, and now there's nothing. Now that nothingness is your memory, and you access this memory where? When you wake up again. Waking up. That's why you witness nothing.
So there's a no manas, but there is like a tape recorder who has recorded silence.
Yeah.
So therefore, still there's a part of some chit. I'm not chit, not as consciousness, but chit as a memory. That component of manas is there.
Yeah, chittam. Yeah, so chittam is still available. Some part of it is still available in deep sleep. This is what you don't often hear. I get it, but that's why you cannot kind of explain as how can I know or know nothing, right? Well, because of abhava vritti.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Nagesh?
Just a clarification for me personally. So that I sense, that I thought, actually, I mean, it's false. And also, it's false also because it's not actually constant. It looks constant, but it's always like in Buddhism, they talk about dependent origination. It comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. Yeah. And the reason I bring that, sometimes I've had glimpses where just for a moment, it could be like a microsecond, in between two thoughts, there's a gap. And then only when I say something, I spoil it.
Well, that gap is also known to you in the presence of awareness. And that's why we have japa. Japa. Now, what is japa? For example, you take in meditation, you can take Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Now, what we often get told is Om Namah Shivaya, right? We say, just say it and then repeat it again, over and over again. Well, you notice the distance. You notice the gap. Om Namah Shivaya, gap. Om Namah Shivaya, gap. So what does this do? It trains your mind to be aware of those gaps, because our mind just keeps on going. We're just totally conditioned just to keep on going without knowing where is this gap between my words. Now I get it. It's very hard because in real life, we don't talk like this. But if we did, right, you would become more conscious of all of your thoughts and the gaps in between. So japa, in that sense, trains you to develop that gap. Om Namah Shivaya, gap. I still am there. Om Namah Shivaya, gap, like this. Did I answer? Okay. Vijay?
Yeah, Andre, we spoke about consciousness, existence, and all that. What would you call life?
Okay.
Because that's where a slight confusion I have. Can we say this life itself is also consciousness?
I'm sorry, life, L-I-F-E, life is also consciousness?
No, L-I-F-E, life.
Yeah. Yes.
Because everything is happening in this life, right? Okay, we know body drops and we continue our journey. But still for initial understanding,
okay,
I'm a little confused about,
sure.
Can we say all? Yeah.
Sure. So life is also consciousness. And I'll just answer this now because we're not in this topic now, but I'll say the final reality is, I was going to explain Brahman, right? Brahman. Brahman comes from root brh. Brh means big. How big? Nothing is bigger than it. That means it's not adjective big. Okay, it's a noun big. If it's an adjective big, then it says it's big as this. Okay, so that means an adjective is qualifying the noun. But in this case, it's not an adjective. It's not qualifying something else because Brahman is all there is. It is a noun in itself. And how big is it? It is limitlessly big, limitless. Okay, then limitless, that means it's right, all pervasive. There's no place where Brahman is not. Now, Brahman, we'll say the next, there is a power we'll talk about. We'll talk about that later. And this power creates Jagat, the world, the universe. So this means before the Big Bang, what was there? These two, Brahman and power of Brahman. Okay, it was there. So before the Big Bang, there was this power, we'll call it intelligence. And in this Jagat, there are sentient beings. And one of those sentient beings is called Vijay. And everything else is, you could say, rocks and matter and 5 elements, right? Which Vijay uses to work out his karma, to work out his desires, his ideas, to achieve, to attain moksha. Now, what does attaining moksha mean? Vijay, this character, is told the truth of you. Yeah, you are mithya, right? Everything about you is mithya, but the truth of mithya is satyam. The truth of the knower, the truth of the ahamkara, that means the content of the ahamkara, is Brahman, which I just explained earlier on. Okay, so when you say life includes Jagat and Vijay. Okay, and what is all of this? Vijay and Jagat, it is nothing but intelligence, which we already explained before, didn't we? If you resolve anything in this world, if I resolve this pot, it's actually resolvable into clay. The clay, through analysis, is resolvable into atoms, into particles, into quarks. And I cannot find a final building block. What Vedanta says is the final building block is intelligence. Because why? You cannot put something together without it intelligently, right, being put together. You don't just see a random world being put together. You have intelligence behind everything put together. And the truth of this intelligence is Brahman. So not only is the Brahman the truth of intelligence, this whole world, it's also the intelligence, it's also the truth of intelligence, it's also the truth of Vijay. And how is Brahman known to Vijay right now, to all of us? How is the final reality known to all of us right now? As that which is invariable, as that which in whose presence the knower converts into a doer, as that in whose presence one thought comes, goes away, a next thought comes, goes away. The invariable presence. That's how the final reality is known to you right now. And knowing that is called moksha. Thank you. So this is an overview. We are yet to go into the big picture. We're just providing a general overview. So don't think now, oh, what about the details? This is coming. Lorena, before I get to you, Nagesh.
Just a quick question, because I know about time. Essentially then, because that means you can't know Brahman as in like normal knowledge. You can only be Brahman. Because that's something that I hear this a lot. And so they all say, no, you just have to be. And they keep saying, just relax, just be, because you already are. Be.
Yeah.
You're doing it. It's already happening. Yeah.
Got it. So I would say no. What do you do to be awareness? Are you not aware right now? It's like saying, hey, Nagesh, please be aware now.
Mm.
As we say, this awareness that is common to all of us is the final reality. So how can I be told be that?
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, please be a man.
Yeah.
Right? Please be a man, right? You already are that.
Yeah. Because it raises the mind again, well, how do I be?
Yeah, so I've heard this. This is in a spiritual world. It's beginner level. You know, you got to give it to them. They're trying, but we don't say this in Vedanta. It's just confusing, and it's not. You can't be what you are always. It's like the waves gets told, be the water. Huh? Right? The entirety of me is the water. There was never a moment when I was not the water. Okay, Lorena?
I think a point of error is when we attribute intelligence to the mind rather than intelligence as it's like the we take it literally, that the vakshata of intelligence,
Yeah.
rather than freeing that to being intelligence of Ishvara, like all intelligence.
Excellent, excellent.
So that's where that locus of error is.
Yeah.
That word intelligence leads people to think it's a mind state, like I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
Like an existing thing is intelligent rather than existence itself.
Yeah. So, you know, you just take a simple seed. There is so much intelligence in that seed that is going to give birth, rise to an entire tree. Could any of us do this? That seed has more intelligence than all of us put together. It knows how deep the roots will go, what kind of fruits it will be produced, how tasty they will be, how many seeds in each fruit will be, what color will be the skin, what, you know, how hard or soft will be the fruit, in what kind of climate conditions will it grow, when will it change its, when will it shed its leaves? It's amazing.
And I think like my brother does physics, so we have this debate about whether things are random creation, or whether they're intelligently created. Right. So that is like the physicists would say, well, that's just a random process in nature or whatever, evolution.
Okay.
Which we're not arguing with. We're not actually arguing with that.
Yeah, you know,
but we say it's an intelligent system. Like
there's an order. There's an order. If there was no order, then you and I would be afraid to wake up tomorrow, because how can I depend on gravity to be there tomorrow? That means you and I depend. We have no choice but to trust. Why do we trust? All intrinsically, we all have intrinsic trust, because there's an order. And this order never fails us. The order never forgets what you have done in the past. It always delivers you the exact corresponding result. But we forget. And yet this one order, one intelligence, keeps track of 8 billion, that's just human beings, keeps track of trillions of ants and bacteria, and everyone's past actions are kept in track by this one intelligence. And we say, oh, you know, this intelligence is me. Can't even remember what I did 2 years ago, not even yesterday. And yet this intelligence will know exactly what I did 105 lifetimes from now. So this is intelligence. You cannot, we're just one minuscule of intelligence. This is why I said initially, a jiva's job is not here to start to replicate themselves into God, into the all-knowing being. It's never going to happen. You can get all of the books, you can read all of the books in the world. How much is that? It's a minuscule to the total intelligence. It's nothing. The only thing, the maximum I can do is recognize my nature, because any kind of other knowledge is not going to appease you, guaranteed. Was it in chapter 7, Chandogya Upanishad, when, was it Narada who goes up to, who is it? Do you notice? Narada goes up to, starts with K, Kumara, something Kumara, and he says, hey, I have just studied 80 topics of the world, 80 different topics: science, history, geography, music, raga, svaras. I've mastered Sanskrit. I've mastered for how many? For a couple of, I believe, a whole yuga, right? A couple of millions of years. I've had time to study for a couple of millions of years, 80 topics, the smartest person in the world. And Narada goes up to Sanat Kumara, that's the name, Sanat Kumara, in chapter 7, Chandogya Upanishad, and he says, I'm still not happy. I'm still not satisfied with myself. Teach me that knowledge which will once and for all settle this once and for all. Once and for all, teach me that knowledge. And Sanat Kumara teaches him self-knowledge. And finally, Narada's heart is at peace, because he finally found what he was looking for. He was looking for all of these, these subject matters. I thought it was in them, but it was not in them. It was in this knowledge that we are in this course teaching. Yeah. Okay, anyone else wants to say before we move on?
Yeah, Andre, I had a question regarding Panch Mahabhutas.
Yeah.
My question is, which has been intriguing me for some time, if we were to place ourselves in the place of that intelligence, reality, time should have been the basic Mahabhuta. We have not included time in the Panch Mahabhutas. Why?
Yeah, good. So what Pankaj is saying is that time and space itself is the subtlest of these 5 elements. So time, space is basically akasha, and you will notice that these akashas, or these elements, they become subtler and subtler and subtler. So they become gross and gross and gross. So space is a lot more subtle than air, and fire is a lot more gross than air, right? So fire, and then what's more gross? Water. What's the grossest of the grossest, the most physical?
Earth.
Earth.
This is why people have an easy time relating with Earth. Anything worldly matters, anything that has to do with tangible objects. You can have a scientist or a physicist or someone that's very smart, and they will have a very good time dealing with these 4 elements. But the moment you mention space or time, what do we usually say? Oh, this is for the physicists. Give this to Einstein. Why? Space is so simple. Space is that between point A and point B. What's so subtle about this that I can't get it? You see this? But most people's minds are not even there to even ascertain space. So they just delegate it to the scientists. So this means your mind in Vedanta, that's why this whole meditation has a purpose, to make the mind subtle enough to capture space. And when you can capture space, you keep on training it, you keep on making it more refined to capture even the subtlest reality, which is intelligence. That's why we turn God into what? An object. What are we turning God into? These 4 elements. Because God is never space, isn't he? He's always something that's physical. The Gopalas, right? He's the Vrindavan, right? It's always a physical place. So in other words, what my mind can capture on earth is exactly what I superimpose in paradise, in Vrindavan, in heaven. The whole journey is about making your mind subtle enough to capture the subtle nuances of reality. I have to capture space, be comfortable with that, be comfortable with intelligence, and then I can, right, capture something that's yourself, you.
So can we say that, since mind is made of panchbhutas, like it's subtle panchbhutas, and time and space is a construct of mind.
No.
So time and space is a construct of mind.
No.
Mind is subtle elements. Time is gross element. So you could say that the mind is even subtler than space, because mind is able to capture and talk about space and postulate about time.
So when we say that, at some time there's a manifestation of a yuga or a big bang happened.
Yeah.
So it would have happened at some place and time.
Yeah, so it happened before. So in other words, there was no time, there was no space, and out of intelligence arose time and space and arose the world. So before the Big Bang, right? When time started, right? So you say, well, what was before there, right? There was just, right? One ekam aditiyam in Chandogya Upanishad, right? There was one without a second. From that one, as we talked about, from its intelligence arose the Jagat. Arose the Jagat and arose Vijay, arose Gautam, arose Andre, arose all of us that, we have to work out our stuff. And we are still in that creation now. We are still in that cycle now. So when the Big Bang happened, there were jivas also. You have to wait for the planets to come, of course. You have to wait for that. And where are those jivas? We're talking to each other now. So this means we are in this one creation now.
So it's not to do with the mind space or the mind time concept. It's not conceptual. It's real.
No, this is called subjective idealism. And that's where you turn the world, the Vyavaharika world, into a state of the mind. See, I can right now die. You can watch me on the ground, right? Now, suppose this mind is totally convinced that you are all inside my mind. Okay, right now, someone shoot me, right? shoot this body. And it's lying on the ground. And what? You're still watching. Oh, look, poor guy. He's been, totally believing these ideas that time and space is inside his mind. And we're all still looking, when is he going to get, to the ashes? When it's time to go to the ashes? So this means it hasn't really affected time and space, because time and space is empirical. It's not, in other words, it's called Ishvara Srishti. It's creation of Ishvara. It is not Jiva Srishti. Time and space is not my subjective idea.
So it's a Vivaharic Jagat, part of the Vivaharic Jagat construct, actual construct.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to finish this verse. So awareness is achintya, unthinkable. It is avikara, doesn't undergo change. It is avyakta. This is a new one. It is unmanifest, says the verse. Now, what does this mean? Awareness is unmanifest. As Lorena used the word, there are two words when you learn the scriptures, you have to understand two basic concepts. There is vachyartha, and there is lakshyartha. So if I say to you, for example, bring me water, are you going to bring me water, like a blob of water, or are you going to bring me a glass of water? You're going to bring me a glass of water. So this means I'm talking about lakshyartha, a deeper meaning behind my statement. If I was talking about vachyartha, the literal, then you would, read statements like awareness is avyakta, unmanifest, and you would take it literally, vachyartha. You would then say, well, then how is that possible? Then awareness is not here right now. So when it says avyakta, unmanifest, it's talking about lakshyartha, a deeper meaning. So this means awareness has not undergone any, has not manifested as anything in particular. That means it's not manifested at any particular form. So for example, if I have, if clay was manifest as the pot, then if the pot attribute was stuck onto the clay, then the clay could never obtain as this kind of pot. So when it says unmanifest, what it's really saying is that the clay has not undergone any attribute. No attribute has stuck onto awareness. Awareness is not manifest as any one particular thing. So in that sense, it is unmanifest. Therefore, the verse continues. He says to Arjuna, all these people, Arjuna, who you are grieving for, who we are concerned about, it's fine. You have a connection to certain people in your life. And this is how it is. You are put in a certain place and you're connected to parents. Your parents are connected to, other people. And so you will naturally be connected to your friends, to your brother, to your sibling, to your mother-in-law, to your wife, right? So we all have these connections. Now, he says, what are you grieving for, right? Grieve if you have to, but recognize one thing. What is it? Like, let's analyze grief. Let's just look at grief in real life. What is it that causes grief? Well, there are several factors. The first thing that causes grief is, as we explained now, I look at this body and mind as an absolute reality. Therefore, it is to be grieved for. Well, that is, as we have seen now, it doesn't have an absolute reality. It's only relative. But let's look at it more psychologically. What makes you concerned or worry for things? Well, the first thing is that when you are recreating unpleasant situations in your life. So this means that something happened, unpleasant happened some time ago, and there's a tendency for the mind to recreate it, to tell the story. Now, every time we tell the story, it becomes a firmer and firmer impression in our mind. So it's got a much more likely chance to bother you. The second component that causes grief or concern or robs your happiness is when you remember those good old times. When you remember the past and you bring some past and you go, oh, remember how I was younger and we were in love and the honeymoon, and it's all gone now. Remember those good times. Now, in this case, what you can do is you can recognize, that was, if you could go back, you would realize with this new mind that you have, it wasn't so fancy. It was just a moment. It was almost, right? Whatever it was shallow. It just was a passing moment like any other. So the second is when we recall those good old times. And when you recall good old times, what else are you doing? You're robbing yourself. You're denying yourself of what's already here right now. This means the more energy I spend remembering good old times, the less I am focused on what needs to be done now, and the less I am likely to relate to Ishvara in this moment. The past is gone. It taught you lessons. It made you a better person who you are now. So the least I can do is be grateful for what the past has done. Even if it was unpleasant, it still made you a stronger person. Every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, has made you stronger. So I can be grateful for that. Thank God it happened. Because if it didn't, you would probably not be enough, wouldn't have enough maturity to recognize that, life is okay, but there's more to life than just meets the eye. So this means all of these experiences played a crucial role in your spiritual journey. Another component that makes us worry or go into a state of depression or sadness is when we want something, but we're not getting it. In this case, what we need to do is we need to recognize the intrinsic value of a thing. So what this means is that if I want, for example, a gold watch, which was, a big thing some time ago, I have to see that this gold watch, what is my real value onto it? It's a status symbol. It's, I'm going to get all the woman, I'm going to be popular. So is this really true? The answer is no. So I have to do a little inquiry and I have to say, what's the real value of this watch? It can give me the time. That's objective. Gold is shiny. It's shiny. I don't even say it's pretty. This is later on. It's rare. This is fact. It's malleable. This is also a fact. Then you can add a little bit of, oh, it's pretty. Otherwise, if we don't do this, we just go, oh, so look at my watch. Look at my my new dress, look at this, look at that. So we lose perspective. So this means when we are not getting, if you're not getting what you want, just pause for a moment and recognize it's not all that to be, psyched up about. It's no big deal. It's nice if you had it, but ultimately it wouldn't really change you at all. It wouldn't really impact your life that much. I need the woman, I need the man, I need the child, I need this. This is fine. But still, even if you don't have it, end of the day, would it really change anything? Right? So this is something that you have to inquire. And you will find that in most cases, you can go very well without it. And the final reason is that the final component is that you're stuck with something and you can't get rid of it. You're stuck with something that you don't want, that's bothering you, but you can't get rid of it. In this case, you have several choices. You can set certain boundaries, because in some cases, it's not possible to get rid of things. You can, you can kind of tell yourself, look, I'm ready to give this much. I can't give more than this. This much I am willing to invest. But anything more than that, already it starts to a little bit affect you. So you have to know how far can you stretch yourself before it becomes unpleasant. The moment you contribute more than you are willing to genuinely give, that's when you've reached your limits. So what happens sometimes is that we are giving, but we don't keep track of do I know my limits? And we forget about our limits because we're lost in the process of giving. So this means I have to stop and say, am I still giving out of love, without expecting anything in return? Am I just giving because it pleases me to give? Am I still in a state of joyous giving? If yes, that's wonderful. But there comes a point when it's starting to become obvious that I'm giving too much time. That's when you make that boundary. Say, look, I'm sorry, I cannot, this is going past my limits. So these are the 4 options that we have. So this means that when it comes to grief, you're given the capacity to exercise. What kind of capacity? Power to do, power to choose, and power to desire. I can have a vision. I can put that vision to to fruition. I can exercise that vision. So does this have anything to do with your age? If you're given these three powers? Unless you're an animal, then we can argue. But if you're a human being, you have power to do, Kriya Shakti, power to desire, Icha Shakti, power to know things, Jnana Shakti. If I have these three powers, there is basically no excuse to make my life as I wish. Therefore, so now why is it that the wise person doesn't grieve? Krishna continues, he says, first of all, because Atma is your true nature. The person who you are grieving for, who you are concerned about, whether it is your mom or your dad or your brother, your sister or yourself, the real nature behind these suits that are being worn, their physical body and their subtle body, is the very awareness that is you right now. That's the essence. That's the most basic essence of this person. And the second reason why a person, a wise person, has an objective relationship towards concern or grief or worry or sadness is because your body is designed to change. It's programmed to change. You can't stop it. And it's designed to live for a certain amount of time and to exhaust its karma, exhaust its experiences that it has to go through in this life. And therefore, by this, the world doesn't become so much of a problem anymore. In fact, the changing world is not a problem, not at all. What becomes the problem or the issue is when I take the changing world as an absolute reality. And then I indulge in that world, which is now an absolute reality for me. Otherwise, the changing world is completely fine. It's supposed to change. Tell me a time when the changing world was not changing. When you and I are gone, many more wars will happen. Many more wonderful things will happen. This is just a speck in a long period of time that's happening, that you and I are born in and experiencing now. It will never stop. There's an image of Vishnu, which demonstrates this nicely, that, Vishnu lying on his Ananta, snake. And now Vishnu has, he is, out of his navel is, Brahmaji, which is creation. And this Brahmaji, by his power, right, his power is Lakshmi, who is massaging his feet, which represents wealth and opulence and auspiciousness and all of the wealth in the world. And this Vishnu, he is sleeping. He is in yoga nidra. His eyes are like this. That means he represents consciousness, the final reality. That means he is not aware of duality. Even though his power is massaging his feet, all of that power is right at his feet. He is totally in his limitless self. And out of him, this world keeps on rising, rising, receding, rising, receding. And he's holding in one of his hands a shankha, which is a conch. Now, what is this conch? A conch is the inner conscience of every human being that says, I will not stop until I find the truth. I will keep going, that inner conscience of what is the right thing to do. Now, if you don't follow that shankha, that conch, what happens? Vishnu takes his gada, his mace. That's the clank on the head. That's a little warning sign. Hey, listen to your conscience, You're going off the track. I'm going to bring you back. That's the papam. That's the feedback system. Now, how do you make the right decisions? Using the discuss, the chakra. The discuss represents the buddhi, the one that's able to slice and dice through falsehoods. This is not for me. I've heard that. This is not for me. That is for me. I want that. It's able to slice and dice through falsehoods and truths. And the lotus flower represents purity. Now, this Vishnu is wearing a yellow, I don't know in Indian, but yellow pants. And the yellow pants represent the 5 elements, earth. So this means, where is consciousness? Where is consciousness not? It's in and through all forms. It is the forms itself. And he's got his serpent. His serpents are looking towards Vishnu. Now, what do these serpents represent? They represent your mind. Now, in this case, Vishnu can also represent the wise person. That means all of these serpents, these minds, which are able to look in 1,000 different directions, where they're all pointed towards self, the knowledge of self. This means they're not out there wandering away how most people are. They're looking towards the most beautiful, most attractive existence, which is Vishnu, which is Ishvara itself. And Ishvara is, and Vishnu is totally oblivious to all of this. He is in his limitless self, Ananda. And out of him, eternal creation. Creation just keeps on rising, receding, receding. And in one of those creations, you and I are in right now. And what are we trying to figure out? We're trying to come back. Yeah, trying to come back to Vishnu. You see this? How? Through the navel. So it's not like now, what is this navel? That means whatever is in creation, it has the source. Its source is this one reality, Ishvara. And I have to figure out through this mind, figure out the truth. In fact, that's what 4 hands can also represent of Vishnu. He's got 4 hands. This means, how does this consciousness express itself? Through one of the hands, manas, through your emotions, through your buddhi, through your chittam, through your memory, and through your eye sense. So through these 4 functions of the mind, Vishnu is able to express himself in this world. And you use these 4 components to figure out Vishnu. Your truth and Vishnu's truth is one, which is consciousness. So therefore, you have now reached the highest purpose of why you have been coming into this creation. And therefore, now next verse we'll talk about, it says, even if you haven't understood Atma, and you still want to say that you, Atma, are this person who keeps on being born and dying, then we still have a solution for you. Suppose all of this knowledge has gone over your head. Suppose. I'm not saying it has, but suppose. And you still want to, and you still want to sort of go, yeah, I'm comfortable that I am this body and this mind because I've been thinking like this since beginningless time, and I'm comfortable. Then we have something for you, and that is going to be in the next verse. Krishna's going to say something to you there. Yeah. So now this is the end of our time.
The Vishwarupam, the Vishnumurti Rupam was explained so well, Andre.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
It's a beautiful imagery. Yeah. So next week we will talk about. Good. We will talk about your relationship to the law of destruction, because often we have this fear towards tomorrow, right? What's going to happen tomorrow? And I don't want things to end. My body's aging. I'm going to die. All of this, we need to have changed our relationship to law of destruction, which is essential in this world. So we will talk about this next session, and see that law of destruction is actually your best friend. It's actually what liberates you. It's what removes your ignorance. It's what takes you to Vishnu. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.